Good afternoon and welcome everyone for day 2 of 7-day FDP on evolving research paradigms in forensic science. The first session for today is on ethical guidelines for responsible conduct of research. Research ethics are moral principles that guide researchers to conduct and report research without deception or intention to harm the participants of the study or members of the society as a whole, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Practicing ethical guidelines while conducting and reporting research is essential to establish the validity of your research. Erroneous handling of ethical guidelines is a major problem in the arena of research and is dealt with strictly as per the norms placed by UGC in India. To elaborate the topic in our midst, we have Dr. Piyoosh Singh, Scientist B Officer in Charge, NIMR IDVC Field Unit, Ranchi of ICMR, National Institute of Malaria Research. Dr. Piyoosh Singh is a postgraduate in physical and biological anthropology from the University of Delhi. Sir went on to pursue his PhD in anthropology from Delhi University and completed his doctoral study successfully in 2016. As a research scholar, Sir provided a molecular approach of studying depression and suicide in the Idu-Mishmi tribe of Arunachal Pradesh. This study was remarkable in terms of the scientific approach to a commonly encountered mental health-related topic. Sir pursued his postdoctoral fellowship from the Institute of Malaria Research, Delhi between 2017 and 19. Presently, Sir works as Scientist B Officer in Charge, NIMR IDVC Field Unit, Ranchi of ICMR, National Institute of Malaria Research. Sir has published multiple research articles in acclaimed journals and is also a trainer in workshops and academic programs on ethics-related topics. We are glad to have Sir. Now, over to you, Sir.
Thank you, Aishwarya. So I'll begin with some objectives. What we'll get after after 1 hour lecture. What is the means of ethics and why ethics are now so important for organization and individuals undertaking research, and describe how ethical principles are of benefit to sound research design. Because if your research considerations are not there, you may compromise some kind of research. You may compromise in terms of design and research studies. So this is very vital part. And describe why adopting an ethical approach to research is very important. So I'll begin with very small brief introduction about what is very research. Research is nothing but actually gaining a systematic knowledge about anything, testing what available knowledge in different conditions. This is actually we may consider as a research. Research is a specified process for achieving a specific goal, for finding new results and promoting human knowledge. Here, I want to add whether when we do research, there is one goal that we should advance our knowledge from the finding of that your study or your research. The advancing of knowledge is very important, and that research actually is a systematic inquiry aimed at progression, accurately describing and explaining a phenomenon of interest. This is actually, of course, these are the scientific terms, and you can say that the complex definitions, but the very core of that research is an understanding of any phenomena, and that should be compensated with the scientific and empirical data. Data should be there. So what you are saying, there is some kind of evidence in form of data, and evidence in form of observation, evidence in form of analysis, some kind of result, and that result should be reliable and valid. Reliable and valid means when a person is saying that there is some kind of frequency, this kind of frequency is there in a population, like if you getting the obesity of 5% in the population, given the same condition, whatever the researcher is claiming, given in same condition, you will also get the 6% frequency. Means your data should be replicable. Yani you should use anyone can get that data in same condition. Okay, so when you are planning a research, yeah, any study, so there are steps like you start in making an observation, then you devise a research question. What is the research question? Then form a hypothesis, or there may be certain theory. Then you make a prediction. Prediction means you make a null hypothesis. This kind of result may be there. Then accordingly you plan your study. There are different research designs, research experiments are there. Then analysis of your result. And if your hypothesis is correct, then you report your result. And if hypothesis is not correct, you can try again, and the things may go on. Well, research are research is of various kind. The people and the different organization, different fields, different arena have different set of research. So we have basically we have the certain kind of, we have divided the research in, I think, majorly 5 fields. Like what is the primary and secondary research? When we generate the data, this is called primary research. When we analyze the data, means another person have created the, you are only analyzing the data, this is called secondary data. And when you do research on the data, secondary research. Quantitative and qualitative data means when you are studying a phenomena that is quantifiable, you can count, you can calculate. And if you are doing research, then it's called quantitative. And if you are going for a very detailed analysis for a particular phenomena, that phenomena cannot be counted. Like suppose the height can be counted, but the facial color and facial features, sometimes they cannot be counted. That can be qualitative analysis. And of course, in social science research, qualitative analysis is the kind of the detailed data of any phenomena. Like if you go for an interview and you go for a FGD, such kind of data go for the qualitative research. And there is applied and basic research. If there is just some theory and you want to apply in certain implement in certain population, then it's called applied data. And even you are doing experiment to generate some knowledge, then it's called basic research. And descriptive and causal research. Actually, descriptive means if you have certain phenomena and you want to know much more about them, what impact those phenomena, how the things are going, then it's called descriptive. And the causal method is if you want to make a correlation between the two phenomena, then it's called causal research. And deductive and inductive research. Deductive means when there is a theory and you want to test the theory, then it's called deductive. Theory to generalization to particular people, particularization, it's called deductive. Means there is a theory and you want to test the theory, then it's called deductive. And but if there is a data but you don't want to develop a theory, then it's deductive research. Ethics is nothing but a branch of a philosophy. Ethics may be of different kind. Like if you see in the medical people, they take Hippocratic oath. Hippocratic oath, doctors should not harm anyone. Means their basic ethics are there. You should take care of your patient or a humanity. And the engineering people, they also have some kind of ethics, like they hold paramount safety features, like the health and welfare of the public. And in robotics also, they also have their ethics. A robot may not injure a human being, any human being. Matlab, means the only target of the robotics is to welfare of the human being. That any robot cannot and should not harm anyone. Ideally, the ethical principle become ingrained in every every behavior of our life, professional life, personal life, family life. So ethics are everywhere, but that are not codified in some way. Sometimes it's a part of our oral tradition, our familial tradition. Sometimes it's coded into written form and part of get the code of conduct and become the part of your law. And any breach of ethics sometimes a breach of ethics considered a very serious offense, and that can be punishable within the profession and sometimes by the law. You can see a lot of cases are there. If you see the ethics of the community ethics and of course social ethics, they are of course elements of that can be punishable. Why in 20th century, actually, what was the need to develop ethics in research? So Sukegi actually in Sukegi there is a place Sukegi. This is very interesting study actually. African American during the syphilis in the Sukegi area, there was a disease called syphilis, and to know the progression of disease, the more than 400 around 400 African Americans were their examination was done, and but they were not informed of disease, not treatment, even no treatment was given to track the full progression. Means ki the 400 people were not given treatment for almost 23 years, more than 30 years actually. And because they want to see the full progression, but of course at the risk of their life. So that was the basically they have violated basic bioethic principle of respect the autonomy. Autonomy means if I am giving the blood, it means I have the right to know why I have given the blood and what the use of my blood in other research. So because of that study response, several reforms were done in different times actually. There is a Nuremberg Code. Nuremberg Code is developed. The first set of ethics rule was developed in Nuremberg Code actually. Nuremberg is again area of Germany where after the World War the the US people have after to know the impact of World War II, they have planned a series of drug trials and experiments that was unethical, of course. So in response of that, there is a German person who filed a court case in US, and in the response of that, the code have drafted a bill. The code have drafted a kind of a law, initial law, how those the drug trials will follow the ethical rule. So initially, they include the informed consent, qualified researcher criteria, and avoid unnecessary harm and coercion. And there is, of course, a guideline of American Psychological Association Code of Ethics for the, of course, behavioral part of research. They included the Nuremberg Code. No deception means everything should be properly written and should be followed. Confidentiality agreement was there and enforcement by the researcher. Then the most important document of the ethical guidelines, the ethical document you can say, is a declaration of Helsinki. Actually, Helsinki is a place in Finland where during the 1960, the whole medical doctors collected and they were collected for a meeting, and they have developed a kind of a very detailed protocol. And during the time they have of course revised the protocol in 1975, 83, 89, 96, 2000, of course 2019. Maybe in coming year they have again revised. They will also revise. So that written protocol is, you can say, the Bible of the ethical guidelines, and every country take the ethical principle from there, and accordingly they make their law in different countries. And that Belmont report, that is a federal ethical guidelines, that is a US guidelines actually. Responsibilities of researcher they have included, and the right of participants before, means before giving the blood, your sample, your information, during the study, and after that, even you have completed your study, there is also a right of participants, that they have the right to know what was the result, where is my sample, where is my information, they also have right. This is the actually when you plan a study, you want to go detailed about the ethical conduct. So this is you should read the Declaration of Helsinki, and there are the series of document starting from 1964 to 2013, and there are 36 articles actually, and those articles are categorized into risk, burden, and benefit. Vulnerable groups and individuals. Who are vulnerable groups? Who cannot speak for their right, like children, the marginalized population, like tribal population, sometimes even some disabled population, they cannot speak for their right. So there are a very specific criteria for those population. Scientific requirement and research protocols. Research ethics committee, what is the use of how the research committee will form, how research ethics committee will function, what is the role, what is the use, and privacy and confidentiality of your data. Informed consent, what is the informed consent? Of course I'll discuss in coming slide. Use of placebo means ki if sometimes even during the drug trial, even implement any kind of intervention, actually they have given you normal drug, but you are not informed that the drug is there. So people perceive it like as a drug or intervention. So it's called placebo. Of course, there is no drug, there is no intervention, but you perceive it as an intervention. It's called placebo. Post-trial provision, after the drug trial, after the experiment, what kind of observation or data should be generated, research registration and publication, and dissemination of result. Of course, how the data will be collected, and will go how you report your data in form of publication. And unproven intervention in clinical practice, how that intervention will be reported. This is actually the national ethical guidelines developed from ICMR. The principles and the key idea of the national ethical guidelines, of course, they are same as discussed in the Helsinki code. But actually, this is important. This is the only referable document in India. So I request to all of you to go the document. This is freely available in ICMR website. Download the document. This is, I think, more than 200-page documents are there. And basically those chapters are there, that preamble, what is the aim, scope of document, and ethical guidelines, statement, general ethical issue, what is the general ethical issues are there. I'm not going into detail because discussing 250 document is not possible in this such a small span. And what is the responsible conduct of research? There's of course a definition. Ethical review procedure, when you are submitting your study, what criteria will be followed during the review process. There what is informed consent, what is the vulnerability, of course, who are the vulnerable population. Clinical trials is a very important part because they are highly risky studies. So there is separate guidelines. Public health research, social and behavioral research. Sometimes even my in Jharkhand also, even people say, if I am taking the social information, is not the ambit of that informed consent. No, of course, you are getting the personalized, any kind of personalized information, you should take informed consent. Without consent, you cannot even write the name of the other individuals. So be careful when you are planning. Of course, you are forensic people. There are a lot of things are there. I think this is very vast arena and vast the dimensions in forensic science. So whenever you plan your study, the only when you are doing study on secondary data, you can skip the consent part, but other ethical parts are of course there. You can skip the informed consent data. Any secondary data you can skip. Even when you are working on the primary data, any kind of data, you should take informed consent. But asking a person what is your name, this is a part of the this come under the ambit of informed consent criteria. There is a human genetic testing and research. Of course, this is very new field, and now it's highly applicable in our society. And biological material, biobanking, and data sets. What we do actually during the experiment, we collect blood 5 ml, and we do experiment on 3 ml, and other 2 ml are rest are there. So what that how we were going to store, how we are going to use that sample, that is also a part of the ethical regulation. You cannot use those blood samples or any kind of biological samples, even the socio-demographic data for different studies. Not like that if you have data, you can start you can plan your another study on the same data and get published. No, you have to take another permission, and there of course there is a ethical guidelines how to use those data. If you have taken permission of biobanking of those biological samples or storing of those samples, then only can use that sample or data for different studies. Research during humanitarian emergencies and disaster research, like in last pandemic, we have seen that there's a series of drug trials were there and new drugs were coming. Generally, there for the drug trial there are a lot of ethical regulation, but some because of that pandemic issue, the pandemic the crisis, they have simplified, they have relaxed some rules. So that was also covered in these guidelines. And of course, there is assisted reproductive technology, organ transplantation. These are new arena which comes under the ambit of national ethical guidelines. So I'll go to a three major principles, how those principles govern this the moral principle of ethical regulation. Weighing risk against the benefit. Avoid, actually those five principles are main. There are a lot of principles, the main five principles are there. Weighing risk against benefits, that of course avoid harm to participants, acting responsibly and with integrity, means you should be competent enough to do any experiment. You should have a proper degree or training, or you should be of proper profession, because nowadays the science is now open, and people without training can plan any study. So you should have proper professional competence when you are going for a study. This is very important part. Trust and honesty, of course, you should be honest enough to explain each and every process of your experiment. Avoid the use of deception. There is no actually during the study, during the ethical approval or ethical consideration, you cannot be more smart than the ethical committee members. So you don't be so smart you can skip some certain parts and people don't get. Of course, they get. Seeking justice. Treat patients and participants fairly. Of course, if in any kind of mishappening, or you can say in kind of deviation or adverse event, you should be responsible for all kind of those things, and you should treat patients and of course their participants. Respecting people's right and dignity. This is very important part. It comes, you should respect their privacy, and whatever data you are taking from those participants, you are responsible for those data, and that those confidentiality of those data is your responsibility, and that should not be breached in any condition. You cannot share the data to anyone, because sometimes even sometimes the data is very actually very secret, sometimes very private data, and those data is of prime importance for any researcher. And of course, there is informed consent in this category, and unavoidable ethical conflict. When something arises, you deal with a responsible way. Avoiding harm to participants. Of course, what kind of harm can be from the study? Life threatening can be there. They can cause disability. Of course, not immediate disability, but can be after some times or during the last phase of your life. Even the research sometimes, research result can embarrass the population, the individual, then ridicule the population and individual, and they can create the mental distress, and can create the anxiety and stress. Those parts should be also be calculated. Avoiding deception means ki best achieved by doing open and transparent. Whatever you are doing, you should be very much open and transparent to ethical committee as well as for the participants also. What is the objective of this? You cannot hide the objectives, you cannot hide the methodology. What is the use? Who will use those products? Study product, who will use your data, the finding of study, that is also important. Generally, people discuss about objectives and methods and skip the part of outcome. Outcome is a very important part. And sorry, I have actually completed more than 40 hours now. 40 minutes, sorry. So I'll be in rush to complete the other part. What is informed consent? Very important criteria. Informed consent is actually starts with the right, responsibility, and the implications of the study. What the right of the individual who is participating, what the responsibility of the researcher, and what is the implication of those study. So informed consent means you are educating a person why I am doing the research, what I am doing the research, how I am doing the research. So means educating the researcher is very important criteria. Means ki informed consent, there should be information sheet. In information sheet, there should be title, aim of the research, who will undertake those, who will be responsible of those study, and who is being asked to participate, what is the criteria of participation, what kind of information or sample, blood sample, urine sample, any kind of sample, what kind of information, socio-demographic information, even personal information, psychological information, any kind of information you want to take, that should be mentioned there. How much of the participant time is required? It may take 30 minutes, 20-minute interview. How much of participant risk is involved? If you are taking blood, there may be some kind of swelling in the area, that should be mentioned in your information sheet. The participation in the study is very voluntary. Of course, the responding to all the question is voluntary. It's not required ki if your interview is started and people have consented for the interview and they'll end the interview. Of course, they can end the interview anytime, whenever he want to end. Who will have access the data? That should be mentioned there. How anonymity of respondents will be preserved, that should be there. Which part of the sample will be used and stored? This is very important. When you are taking 5 ml blood, if the blood is suppose 2 ml blood is not used, then how is going to use and how is going to store, that should be mentioned in the information sheet. To look after the whole ethical part and ethical regulation, there is called ethical review committee. When you plan a study, you submit that ethical clearance form along with the other study details. What is the methodology, title, and other things. Lot of things are there actually. Every ethical review board have their own form, but the main purpose of ethical review committee, that each and every detail of the study should be reviewed. There should be no violation of the ethical regulation of human research. And that ethical committee maintain ethical standard of practice in research, ensure protection of subject, research worker from harm, no exploitation, to provide reassurance to the public, protect research from the unjustified criticism. Okay. And that ethical clearance form include the proposal. Even you have questionnaire, that questionnaire should be information consent form, informed consent form, information sheet, all kind of documents should be there. Data collection should commence according to the approval. There is a very important thing. You cannot collect retrospective data. Means ki when you are applying for the ethical clearance, you cannot take the you can start, you only take the data after the approval of the ethical committee. You cannot take prior data. You cannot consider that prior data. And institutional review board approved study document to obtain informed consent and conduct study procedure. Actually, IRB has always have right to see info that consent form, and so accordingly the consent form should be preserved and of course should send to ethical committee whenever they require. And of course, in kind of any deviation and any change, whatever submitted during the ethical clearance, that should be reported immediately to the ethical committee. Actually, the last part, I'll take only 5 minutes more. Actually, when you collect the data, analyze the data, how you report the data is a very important part. To ensure the accuracy of scientific knowledge, methodology should be very rigorous and scientific valid. Subject selection, yani suppose subject selection, there should be proper defined inclusion and exclusion criteria. And if you have committed that 500 persons are required, so you can take information or blood sample only from the 500 individuals, because you have you are permitted to take only 500 samples. Not if you are taking, means you are permitted for 500, you are taking samples from 1,000 people. It's not allowed. It's unethical. Clarity research method and data availability, and your data should be available for any kind of review and of course observation. Sometimes even the publication people, they ask to submit those research data also. Okay. Now what is there is important parts, intellectual and property rights. Actually, what kind of intellectual and property rights deviation, ethical deviation maybe in your study? Sometimes people cite the study, but they don't read those study. Cite those study means ki someone has cited the study in his work in different perspective, and you are citing the study in different perspective, and the main content of those study actually is missed out because you have not read the content, and the whole meaning of those result or your findings sometimes change. So go to original document, read the document, whether whatever you want to say is written there or not. This is called cross referencing. During the cross citation, you should be very much alert that the original content have the thing what you are saying in your document. Okay. And if you are taking some content or some piece of data, some piece of result from any person, so it's your responsibility, it's your duty, it's your obligation, it's obligation that you should cite the person and give the proper authorship. Order sorry, of course, if actually as per the contribution of your work, that the authorship should be decided. It's not it's someone is your friend, you are taking the authorship of first and second. There is a proper rule, and of course sometimes general ask what is the role of, what is the duty, what is the work the particular person have done. Okay, thank you.